Today we are here with my friend Heather. Heather is a language professional, business owner, and a lecturer with the University of the West Indies. And she's here to share her experience with us about her journey with languages. Heather, good morning. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Andrew. Nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation. It's an important day,
Yeah, you are important.
Like I sound like I have plenty things.
But with all those things, tell us how your language journey began.
My first memory of foreign language, I might have been 7 or 8. And my father would have introduced me to a friend of his, a colleague. I can't even remember exactly who he was now, but he would have come from West Africa. And I remember him saying that he spoke 8 languages. And I was sure he was lying, right? Because my 7 or 8-year-old brain could not imagine that the world had 7 or 8 languages that somebody could learn. So that would have been the first seed, I think, that was planted for me, that foreign language was a thing. I remember being towards the tail end of primary school into secondary school. I would have been introduced to Sarafina. Sarafina would have been a movie about South Africa. And I remember falling in love with the music of Sarafina and trying to transcribe some of the sounds of the songs that I was hearing, So that, I think, would have been, my love for linguistics would have begun there. Yeah, phonetics especially. Yeah, the sound of the soundtrack would have been attractive to me. And then I went into secondary school, and of course in secondary school you learn the French and the Spanish. Having left secondary school, I went to university in Brazil, so Portuguese entered, and Portuguese, I think, now has taken over. It is the language where I lived, the language that I do business, right? The language that pays my bills. And since then, I have done some basic Arabic. I took a trip to the Middle East, and I learned some basic Arabic to be able to communicate while there. And I keep promising myself that an Asian language is on the horizon. I feel that, I would love to learn an Asian language. So I still have that promise to keep to myself. So over the course of my life, I have interacted with various languages. But I think the seed, the genesis of it all, would have been that guy that I would have met when I was 7 or 8 years old, who introduced me to the fact that learning multiple languages was actually a possibility.
And you mentioned that you, of course, you studied French and Spanish in secondary school.
I did.
You still speak those, or you mainly focus on Portuguese?
I will not tell anybody that I speak French. Right. Spanish, I do have postgraduate certification in translation. So I do Spanish translation. I don't do interpretation for Spanish because the Spanish and the Portuguese are so very close that it's very easy to be talking Portuñol when you think you're talking Spanish. So I would do the documents in Spanish, but not the verbalizing. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I was about to say that we could have easily had this interview in Spanish.
No. You're trying to embarrass me in the public domain.
Of course not. And well, you teach as well at the University of the West Indies. So you're always interacting with younger people. Have you seen, because we know that Spanish and French are, the going languages in Trinidad. Have you seen an increase in interest in Portuguese?
Yes, I think that we can compare language and language learning kind of like the stock market where, there are ebbs and flows. But if you look at it over a long period of time, you see an upward trajectory. I think the same thing can be said for Portuguese language, that, there have been, good seasons and not so good seasons. Right. But overall, I think that there has been an increasing interest in Portuguese, and there is a reason for that. Right. There have been some global events. So there was World Youth Day. There was the Olympics that took place in Rio de Janeiro recently. So, I think that would have opened Brazil to a younger generation of people. I also think that Brazil has been very strategic in opening doors and giving opportunities to people of the global south. So I would have gone to Brazil to study on a scholarship that was given to persons from the global south, right? And Brazil has been strategically giving these opportunities for study and for work. And that too has opened the door for young people to consider Brazil. And I think as well, one of the other things is the fact that there is technology, right? So now we are seeing people's YouTube channels and we're seeing people on Instagram. So it means that young people have an opportunity to see Brazil and to live vicariously through other people, and have the opportunity, therefore, to interact with Brazil in a way that they probably didn't, 15, 20, 30 years ago.
I think we more or less have a similar background. We would have studied some of these things in school, and we know how it used to be, where teachers weren't as engaging and interesting,
Right.
for want of a better word, as
I had good teachers.
yeah, me too. I had some good ones as well. But what is your approach to language teaching, and how is it different?
The first class that I give every academic year, the first thing that I do in the class is introduce students to 500 words in 5 minutes. And it might sound like cognitive overload, but the approach is a cognitive, effective approach, right? Where I would show students that there are simple tricks that you can use to move from Portuguese to English. So, for example, all nouns in Portuguese that end in DADE, the equivalent is a noun that ends in TY. So, if we take a word like city, CITY, in English, if you remove the TY, and you replace it with DADE, DAJ, you get cidade, which is the equivalent Portuguese word. And just by knowing that rule, you have learned 120 Portuguese words, right? So my approach has been the approach of trying to disarm the students from day one, so that this intimidation that they have, because at the end of the first class, my students walk out. The student who would have told themselves, this Portuguese thing going to be real hard, I ain't gonna know nothing, I'm not going to survive this semester, walks out of the class knowing 500, 600 words at the end of the first class. And what that does psychologically is that sets you up for, well, if I could learn 500 words on the first day, well, why ain't gonna learn by the end of the semester? And I think that kind of effective kind of approach for the language, drawing on their previous knowledge of things that, they might have taken for granted, allows people to disarm themselves and be open to language learning in a way that they probably might not have been before.
Zero to Rio. So you're a business owner, as we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. Tell us about Zero to Rio.
Zero to Rio was born out of a specific need to serve as a bridge for the Caribbean and Brazil to try to bring us closer together. One of the things that I tell my students all of the time is that it is possible for you to know all the right words, and because you don't know the culture, you could still get it wrong. In the Caribbean, we have the technology, we have the innovation, we have the infrastructure, we have a lot of the things that are needed to create a business, and to expand businesses to very many places in the world. The difference, however, I think, is that we don't have the cultural nuances to be able to enter the Brazilian market. The Brazilian market is very different from North America and Europe, which run on efficiency. In Brazil, they run on trust. Yeah, trust comes before transaction. So you can't just know the vocabulary. Knowing the vocabulary is not enough. You need to know how Brazilians interact and how they behave, because that could make or break the business even before you pitch the deal, right? So, one example for it is the fact that in Brazil, the coffee comes before the negotiation. You mightn't like coffee, but you need to understand that coffee is part of Brazilian culture. So a meeting probably is supposed to start at 10. It mightn't start until 5 or 10 past 10, and then you have to drink the coffee. You understand? And in the coffee, you're talking about the children, you're talking about everything except the business, because Brazilians do business with people they trust. Yeah, they are not transactional as a society. Yeah, they need to feel, they need to build a relationship. So the person who goes into the meeting thinking to themselves, well, I'm going to wrap up this deal in the first meeting. Not Brazil. You do not wrap up the deal in the first meeting. The first meeting is about the coffee.
And well, of course, Brazil is the largest market in terms of the Lusophone world.
Mm-hmm.
Brazil is the closest, of course, but there are other countries. What is the potential that you see for Trinidad and for the region in interacting with the Portuguese-speaking world?
Right. I think the fact that we are English speaking and the fact that we have had such a close connection with the United States has spoiled us in a kind of way. We tend to think that knowing English is enough, right? But as you mentioned, Brazil is a pretty large nation, and not just a large nation. Brazil is one of the largest suppliers and exporters of food in the world. Yeah, yet we look northwards for sustenance, right? And it's not only about the food, it's also about the technology. So in the last 7 or 8 years, the Brazilian government introduced PIX. PIX is a financial platform that has allowed for persons who ordinarily would be outside of the financial system to form part of the entire financial system, right? So the snow cone vendor and the coconut man and the taxi driver are now all part of the one financial system. And if you think about our local economy, there are some persons who are on the peripheries, who are on the outside. They don't get bank loans. They don't get, you understand, because they don't have the regular books that we look for in business. But Brazil has been able to circumvent that because of the intervention of the central bank, right? So there are technological things that we can learn as a region from Brazil. And if we go further afield, you have São Tomé e Príncipe, which are 2 little islands off the coast of West Africa, Portuguese speaking, right? They have been known to be the largest exporters of cocoa for years. They no longer export cocoa en masse like that, but what they've started doing is that they've started doing exclusive organic cocoa production. And there are countries in the world who place orders years in advance for cocoa from São Tomé e Príncipe. And Trinidad is known to have a very high, an exclusive brand of cocoa. Imagine what a conversation with our cocoa farmers and the cocoa farmers from São Tomé e Príncipe. Imagine what that conversation could yield.
Yeah.
But that would require stepping off the ledge of English language comfort into wanting to speak Portuguese. And I'm saying that it's for reasons like these that Zero to Rio was set up. Yes. So the day you decide, here what, I am going to take the leap and, see about food sustenance and sustainability, or see about technology, or see about going into cocoa farming, there is an opportunity, and you can feel free to send an email to info@zerotorio.com.
Yeah, definitely. We will definitely leave your information, all of your information in the description, so that persons who need services, which are essential, your services, could reach out to you. Artificial intelligence, Heather, is a big topic now, especially for professionals who deal with languages. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's useful, I think, to a great extent, but also not in every situation. What are your thoughts on AI, and has it been a challenge for you with your business?
I think technology has always been a tool in education, right? So let's start there, right? Technology is something that we use all of the time as educators. And I would be foolhardy to not use a tool to assist my students to advance, right? AI has helped with administrative things and has helped with research things, right? Which kind of frees me up then to focus my energies on the other parts of the business that the algorithm can't replace. So things like language and culture, those things are fundamentally human. AI can't replace those things. AI can't read a room when you're sitting at a business table negotiating. AI can't read body language and respond, to the body language that is being seen, right? AI can't know that the energy in a room shifted, right? Because you said Buenos Dias instead of Bon dia, right? So yes, AI is useful for information. The value that I offer my clients is not information. If my clients need information, they could Google it, right? They don't need me for that. But what they need me for are the nuanced things that the algorithm can't replace. So sure, AI is helpful, but as you said, there are some things that it doesn't take the place of some of the other things.
And my last question for you, Heather, you're an educator, but you're also someone who has gone through the rigors of learning new languages. We know that that could be extremely difficult and that it lasts a long time if you want to get good at it. What advice do you have for those persons who are just beginning their journey with languages, whether it be Portuguese, Spanish, French, whatever language?
I think the first thing that we should try to do is to focus on something that you love. The thing about language learning is that it has to be consistent. One of the things that I say to my students is that if you imagine language learning like having to brush your teeth, if you're supposed to brush your teeth for 2 minutes every day, over the course of 30 days, you would have brushed your teeth 2 minutes times 30 for 60 minutes, 1 hour. But brushing your teeth for 1 hour on day 30 is not the same as brushing your teeth for 2 minutes across 30 days. That is how language learning is. You have to be in constant contact with the language. So the easiest way to do it is by doing something that you love. So if you love music, well, then find a playlist, whether it is samba or bossa nova or fado, and you're listening to the music every day. If you are into movies or films or series, right, find one on Netflix and have the audio in Portuguese and you can have the subtitles in English so that you are constantly being watched. If you're into sport, Brazil has football, it has volleyball, it has Formula One, there's gymnastics. So, find yourself involved in the language on a consistent and continuous basis. That is the first step. And then when you want to move from the passion that you have into purpose, or if you want to move from curiosity into confidence, then is when you move on to look for support from, language teachers, etc., for the various things that you would like to delve deeper into. But I think the major thing, the thing that will keep you coming back constantly and getting your 2 minutes every day, would be finding the thing that you love and tying Portuguese in some form or fashion to the thing that you love.